Welcome to Learning History by playing Age of Empires. I'm just going to start at the very beginning. We're going to talk a little bit about the learning campaign, which actually really dives into William Wallace and him actually, fighting and trying his best to defeat the British. So there's really only going to be two actual missions in this Learn to Play William Wallace campaign. But I just kind of want to, I guess I'll jump in and then I'll preface it. Okay, so before I hop into the actual story, just to give a little bit of background, Scotland originally had a king, King Alexander III, and this dude was the bee's knees. He was the best, and Scotland was in a period of like peace, economic stability. They had trading agreements with some of their neighbors, and it was great, right? Everything was going great for Scotland. And then Alexander III ended up dying, which, I don't know how prevalent this was at the time, but he fell off his horse. It sounds like a pretty lame death, but, back in those days, you could die of diarrhea, so falling off a horse is a little bit better than that. There weren't any heirs to the throne of Scotland. The next in line was Alexander's granddaughter, who actually was in Norway. She wasn't even in Scotland. And she ended up getting very sick and dying on the voyage to Scotland in around 1290. So then there just was not a clear heir of Scotland. And that caused a lot of turmoil because there were lots of families in Scotland that thought they should be the next in line to the throne. And eventually King Edward of England was invited by the general Scottish nobility to help arbitrate this situation. This wasn't great because, King Edward had his own plan and he was busy or was interested in conquering France. So giving him full reign to decide who the leader should be was definitely going to be, the downfall of Scotland, because he was going to put someone in there that, would end up reporting directly to him. Edward, of course, decided to go ahead and put someone called John Balliol, and said that this guy had the strongest claim as the leader of Scotland, but he's basically just a puppet for King Edward of England.
We are without a leader. The dead King of Scotland has no heir. War creeps in from the south, where Edward Longshanks, the avaricious King of England, has returned from successful campaigns in Wales and France. As Longshanks turns his attention to Scotland, the shadow of fear settles across the Highlands. The English have thousands of Welsh longbowmen, hundreds of knights on horseback, and dozens of siege weapons. We Scottish have a rabble of untrained soldiers who do not even know how to march in a straight line. We must act soon. If we're to have any chance of resistance, we need to forge an army by any means necessary.
Right, and that's basically the same summary. The English did march north, King Edward did, and in April the Scots lost in the Battle of Dunbar. And I think this is all pre this campaign. So we're going to go ahead and start. This first mission isn't actually part of, the William Wallace story, but it is here just for the training. All right, so here we are, the Battle of Stirling Bridge. And to really know, what the determining factor of this battle was, you need to know a little bit about the geography. So Stirling Bridge was like this marsh, and it really rendered the English cavalry, any sort of horseback fighter, ineffective because the horse just couldn't get a good grip, right? It's marshy, it's slick, it's super wet, and that was really a big part of how the Scottish ended up defeating the English at Stirling Bridge. They were actually able to draw out the English cavalry into the bog before they started killing them, and then the English saw that happening. They're like, whoa, this isn't good. They sent reinforcements over the Bridge of Stirling, which caused the bridge to actually end up collapsing. The English that were left on the other side of the river ended up fleeing the battle. The Scots didn't really suffer many casualties. Their ability to basically have the English defeat themselves really helped ensure that they weren't suffering major losses, or really, much, if any, losses at all. And this was seen as a big turning point because, prior, the English had better trained soldiers. They were using superior tactics, superior weapons, and it was really hard for the Scottish to have any wins. But Stirling Bridge was seen as like a big turning point and a battle that many of the Scottish used as an example moving into any of the following wars. Alright, this should probably be enough people. So here we go. This is going to be the Battle of Stirling. We got to march over to the English at Stirling Bridge and defeat them. Alright, maybe less accurate. There's no actual bridge here to knock down, and I'm not really seeing the boggy marsh area, but you get the point. So this is kind of true. After the Battle of Stirling, William Wallace decided to really focus on the economics of Scotland. He wanted to build Scotland back to where it was under Alexander III. The English had essentially been repelled all the way out of Scotland with just some lingering troops, and William saw this as being a great time to really work towards strengthening Scotland. William Wallace did not get economic, I don't want to say victory, but freedom or stability back to Scotland through finding relics. But it was through trade treaties with allies, and these trade treaties, while not enough to get Scotland back to what I would call economic stability, did help. And he wasn't super successful. He really just got Germany to be willing to trade with them. And after that trade agreement was signed, they actually decided to go back to military campaigns and mount an invasion on England. And their raiding of Northumberland was successful. Wallace basically left there with a bunch of goods, and eventually himself, Wallace, was knighted. Things look to be going really good for Scotland, but you have to remember that England was still fighting France, right? So they were still completely preoccupied with the French, which was a lot larger of a campaign. The English really just saw the Scottish as being a huge nuisance. So, of course, when England and France signed a treaty, that meant that King Edward could put more focus on the Scots and start to mount his own attacks. All right, so here we go. The Battle of Falkirk, the real showstopper. This is the final battle. Wallace's troops ended up marching south for this, and the English brought everyone they had. And this is really where the English longbowmen came into account as a superior unit. So, now that William Wallace is here, I think it's time to launch an attack, but I'm at my pop limit, and it doesn't matter how many houses I build, I'm not going to be able to build more population. So, I don't really have any siege units, so that's kind of tough, but I dropped this castle, so I think that'll help. Anyways, let's talk about what really happened at the Battle of Falkirk. they lost. The English beat the Scottish so badly just because the English had the longbowmen. They just outranged the Scottish, and they just killed tons of them. Huge losses for the Scots. It ended up being very rough on them, and it was so bad, in fact, that William Wallace actually went ahead and just left the Scottish army. It lived his life in the forest for a while until he was captured by King Edward, at which point they just ended up executing him. So not a great story, you know. It was definitely tough on the Scottish, and as I'm sure you know, like the story between the Scots and Wales and the Irish is one that's long and full of death and butchery, and the English ultimately do win. For us, though, we're going to win. I am spamming the heck out of these guys. I had so many troops just built up. And of course, it's the learning campaign, so it's super duper easy. So we're just going to go ahead, go right on up, take down this castle, and then that'll be the win for us. A little bit of a better turnout than what William Wallace experienced.